In the heart of a small village nestled between lush green hills, there lived an old woman named Nina. She was known for her wisdom, but also for the hardened bitterness that had taken root in her heart over the years. Nina was a woman who held onto tradition with an iron grip, and it was this fierce love for her people's ways that had brought her peace, or rather what she called peace, throughout her long life. Nina had married the man who was once the pride of their tribe, a man named Okafor. Together they had 2 children, a son named Chidi and a daughter, Adiz. When Okafor passed away many years ago, Nina had been left with only her memories and her children to cherish. But the pride she held for her heritage, for the ways of their ancestors, was something she could not let go of. For Nina, the tribe came first. The rules, the customs, the rituals, and the way they lived their lives, all were sacred. When Chidi, her only son, grew older, she was eager for him to marry a woman from their tribe. After all, she had to ensure that their bloodline remained pure, that the values and customs of their people were upheld. Nina had always made it clear to Chidi that his future wife must come from their tribe, and she had even begun to plan who that woman might be, in case he could not decide for himself. But one fateful day everything changed. Chidi had met a woman named Ifeoma while working in the city, and although Ifeoma was kind-hearted and intelligent, she was not from their tribe. She hailed from a neighboring village, a place that Nina considered inferior, where customs were not as strict and values were not as pure. Nina had been furious when she first heard the news. "You bring shame to our family," she had screamed at Chidi, her old voice trembling with rage. "How could you choose a woman who is not from our bloodline? Do you not care for the legacy of your forefathers?" Chidi had tried to explain that Ifeoma was different. She had loved him, cared for him, and accepted him for who he was. She was good-hearted, hard-working, and devoted to him. But none of that mattered to Nina. The only thing that mattered was that she was not from their tribe. "I will not allow this," Nina had said, her eyes burning with resentment. "You must choose a woman who honors our customs. That is the only way you will earn my blessing." But Chidi had refused. He had gone ahead and married Ifeoma in a small ceremony, with only a few close family members and friends present. It was a decision that tore the family apart. Nina could not bear to look at her son, who had chosen a woman she considered an outsider, a stranger. 4 years, Nina lived in bitterness and silence, keeping a careful distance from Ifeoma. She would never call her by her name, instead referring to her as "that woman" whenever she spoke of her. And when Chidi would visit with his wife and children, Nina would retreat into her house, refusing to come out. She refused to acknowledge Ifeoma's presence, as if her existence was an insult to everything Nina had believed in. Ifeoma, for her part, tried desperately to win over the old woman. She would bring gifts, baskets of fruit, woven baskets, and even some of her own cooking, but Nina would not touch them. The old woman had grown colder with each passing year, her heart hardened by her disdain for the woman who had married her son. The tension between Nina and Ifeoma reached a boiling point one fateful afternoon when Chidi brought his family to visit. It was a rare occasion when Nina agreed to have them over, but only because she knew that if she did not show some semblance of grace, Chidi would stop visiting altogether. The visit started off quietly, with the usual awkward silence hanging in the air. Chidi tried to make small talk, but Nina only answered in short, clipped sentences. Ifeoma, always the peacemaker, smiled gently and asked about Nina's health, but the old woman barely acknowledged her. Then out of the blue Nina spoke. "You have no right to be here," she said, her voice low but cutting. "You, a woman from a foreign land, have no place in this family. You do not belong here, and you never will." Ifeoma's face faltered for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "I only want to be a part of this family," she said softly. "I love your son, Nina. I will always respect you and your traditions, even if I am not from your tribe." But Nina was beyond reasoning. She stood up, her frail body shaking with the force of her anger. "Respect? How can you respect us when you have dishonored everything we stand for?" she spat. "You are not my daughter-in-law. You are nothing but a stranger who has come to take my son away from me." The words cut through Iphioma like a knife, but she remained calm. She knew that nothing she could say would change Nina's heart. She looked at Chidi, whose face was a mask of pain, and then back at Nina. "I did not come here to take anyone away from you," Iphioma said, her voice gentle. "I came here to love your son and to be a part of this family, if you will let me." But Nina was not listening anymore. She turned her back on Iphioma and walked away, muttering under her breath about how this marriage was a betrayal of everything their people had fought for. The visit ended shortly thereafter, with Chidi and Iphioma leaving in silence. They knew there was no changing Nina's mind. As they drove away, Iphioma held Chidi's hand tightly, hoping that one day his mother would accept her. That day never came. As the years went by, Nina grew even older and more frail, but her hatred for Iphioma did not diminish. Chidi continued to visit, but the tension was always palpable. Each time he would leave with his children, Nina would remain in her house, staring out at the world with a deep, unyielding sadness. One evening, after many years of silence between them, Chidi returned alone to see his mother. He was now a man well into middle age, with children of his own. The weight of the years had etched lines of worry on his face. Nina was sitting on her porch, staring out at the fading sunset. "Mother," he said, his voice soft but steady. "I need to talk to you." Nina looked up, her eyes sharp despite her age. She said nothing but gestured for him to sit beside her. "I have missed you," Chidi continued, his voice breaking. "I know you haven't forgiven Iphioma, and I know you probably never will. But please understand this, she is my wife. She is the mother of my children. And she has done nothing but love me." Nina looked at him long and hard. Her eyes filled with the weight of years of bitterness. "I have never wanted to hurt you, mother," Chidi said, his voice shaking. "But I will not turn my back on her. I will not choose between the two of you. I love you both, and I wish you would find it in your heart to love her too." For a long moment, Nina said nothing. Then, with a sigh that seemed to carry the weight of her entire life, she spoke. "I have always feared losing you," she said quietly. "But now I see that you have already chosen her. And perhaps I was wrong to hold on so tightly to old ways that no longer serve us. Perhaps it is time I let go." It was a small concession, but for Chidi, it meant the world. He embraced his mother, and for the first time in years, he felt the warmth of her love, even if it was not yet fully healed. In time, Nina would come to see that love was more than just bloodlines and traditions. It was about kindness, understanding, and the willingness to change. It wasn't easy, and it didn't happen overnight, but Nina's heart slowly began to soften. And though she never fully accepted Iphioma as her daughter-in-law, she learned to respect her and, in time, found a way to let go of the hate that had once consumed her. For Chidi and Iphioma, this was enough. They knew that the road ahead would not always be smooth, but they also knew that love, true love, was a force more powerful than any tradition, and that was something Nina could not deny.